Okay, today we are joined with Corey Marshall. Of course, he is the voice actor for Ryo Hazuki in the Shenmue series. So thank you for joining us today, Corey.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. So first off, I think you said a little bit earlier that you're currently in the Philippines right now. Is that something that you're just on vacation for, or are you actually living there right now?
Yeah, actually, I'll be living here for, let's see, I've been here for a couple of months. I'll be here for about a year total. That's how long my visa will last here because my wife is from here and her parents still live here. So, people may know that I have a beautiful young daughter who's she just turned 4. So she is here in the Philippines to visit her grandparents and to spend a lot of time with them before she has to go to full-time school. And so it's really just a life experience for her to see another country, to see another culture, and to spend time with her grandparents. So that's what I'm doing here.
Very awesome. I've been in the Air Force for pretty much my whole adult life, and all the time for my children, that they've been around and everything. So they've got a lot of different cultural experiences just from us moving around. We've gone to Guam. We've gone all over, not only just the United States, but overseas and stuff like that. So I think it is great to get your children out there to experience different cultures and just being in one place their whole childhood. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really invaluable. If anybody can work that out somehow in life, if you can get your kids exposed to just different than home, you know what I mean? Different people,
Exactly.
Different things, that's really invaluable, especially at a young age. People can really learn that the world is very, I don't know, it's a very beautiful place. It's funny you mentioned Guam. I used to live there as well. I lived in Guam.
No kidding, really?
For a while. Yeah, I when I was still a professional dancer in my former life, I did a show out there at the Sandcastle. You may remember that place.
I do, yes, I do.
Yeah, there's like a big kind of Las Vegas style spectacular show with magic and lots of dancers, and they had like the Vegas Jubilee girls with the big head feather dresses and all that kind of stuff, and that's what I was doing out there. So
that's awesome. How long did you say you were out there for?
Well, unfortunately, I got an injury on my ankle, and I only stayed out there for about 6 months. But that ended up working out because a couple of weeks after my injury, they called me up for Shenmue 2.
Oh.
And then I went and did just a short trip over from Guam. I don't know, it's like anywhere between 4 to 6 hours, I forgot. But from Guam to Japan, it actually ended up really working out because I said, well, if I didn't receive my injury, then I would have to quit the show, and that would have been some bad blood. But it ended up just kind of working out just perfectly, where I couldn't work anymore because I had rolled over the top of my ankle and had a severe sprain and swelling, and it's one of those things where I couldn't even really walk on it.
Ouch.
Let alone perform on it. So it was kind of strange. Ended up all's well that ends well, I suppose, because it just ended up being perfect timing where I thought, wow, this is great. I'm out of a job, and now I got to go do Shenmue 2. So
I think that worked out pretty well in hindsight. So, I learned something else, about you talking to you last night, that you're a fellow Texan. I had no idea. Playing the Shenmue games would never have picked up on a Texas accent from Ryozuki. So, can you tell us a little bit, going back to your childhood and everything, going back living in Texas, were you a gamer growing up, that kind of thing? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, I lived out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, in a place called the Devil's Backbone.
Whoa.
And a place called Devil's Backbone is a fun place to have dirt bikes and four-wheelers and, all that sort of thing. And I spent a lot of time outside, and we did not have TV. We had like 3 fuzzy news channels. And, later on, my brother had an Atari, and I remember thinking that was just the coolest thing ever, and we played multiple Atari games. And then eventually, being kind of a, you know, we couldn't have everything, because I remember some of my friends had both systems, but my mother ended up buying me a Nintendo when I was young, and so I was able to play Nintendo and all their games. And my friend across town had a Sega, and I would as often as I could go and visit my friend across town who had his Sega system, and that was great to be able to play all his games. So.
Very awesome. Is there any game in particular that kind of sticks out at you? Doesn't have to be Sega related, but going
Right.
back then, back in the Atari and Nintendo and stuff, those early days, is there anything that kind of looking back, that you kind of remember fondly?
Yeah, I think I've always been a serious fan of role-playing games, and that's why I'm quite honored to be a part of Shenmue, is a game, Final Fantasy, that was on Nintendo platform. Really spent a lot of time on that game, and really, somebody asked me about this before, and I just, when I think about even just the key art for Final Fantasy, it just strikes up emotions in me, and I just go back to when I was a kid and experiencing those stories, and just the different places on the map, and I kind of feel like, again, just an emotional response to that game in particular, where I just spent so much time trying to reveal all the secrets and getting my characters all the way up to level 99, and
Absolutely.
So.
I remember Final Fantasy. I absolutely agree. That is probably my favorite RPG of all time, just because of what it means to me. Looking back on, spending the time with my brothers, us all huddled around the TV playing it. But I remember just how much it blew my mind once your characters transformed into like their super badass selves. I was like, oh my god, I never had seen that in a video game before. Completely blown away. That was a great experience.
Yeah, that's true. Where characters do start out a certain way and grow and build into something completely different, right? Yeah, like they start out weak, they don't have very many powers, and then they do transform. And I think that's something that I like to do too, is take, every character and get them all the way up to, the strongest possible, and really transforming them. And I guess that's kind of life lessons there, where you start out young and inexperienced, and then you just try to become the strongest you that you possibly can. And so it's kind of interesting, I guess. People relate life to video games a lot, and I guess that's it. Funnily enough, I do relate my life to video games, and I think a lot of people do. And where even just going out into the world, I draw on those experiences from games and be like, well, I need to get what I need, what I want, and these try different ways of doing things and not giving up and going around different routes, not just a direct route, or just trying different things in life. And I don't know, that seems maybe silly, but I don't know. I think I learned a lot from games in my life.
Yeah, it sounds, like telling, even maybe talking to the average person, and they might not fully comprehend or really understand what you mean by that, but I think there are, and I mean, I think it's in any sort of work of art or anything like that. I think there's something that you can draw from and apply it to your life, and I think video games are no different. There's a lot of different good lessons to be learned in many of our classic video games throughout the industry. So, absolutely.
Yeah, somebody, I was actually comparing a good game to a good book, because I'm a big reader. I like to read a lot, and I read everything from. I do read a lot of sci-fi, no surprise, but I do read classics from stuff that's going on today, and when you're able to immerse yourself into a story and sort of the world goes away. I remember coming home from school and playing these games, and you're able just to kind of let everything go for a while and immerse yourself into the story. It's very similar to a good book. where there's twists and turns, and sometimes you think you're going one way and something completely different happens. And yeah, because when I'm reading a book, I'll even talk to my wife about something that is happening in, let's just say, Dune. You know what I mean? I'm reading Dune, and I'll talk to my wife about this happened and that happened, and oh my god, I couldn't believe it. And like, as there's like real people in the world. I'm talking to her about what happened to Muad'Dib that day.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I compare a good game, or like a role playing game, to a good book, and if it's worth losing yourself for a little while, it's kind of I think it's good for a person's mind to kind of escape for a while. It might be a little healthy to leave all your worries and all of the outside influences, leave those outside of your enjoyment experience for a little while.
Absolutely.
And that's why I read, and that's why I play. So
very good.
Well, going from there, how did you actually get started in voice acting?
Well, I was living in New York at the time, right? And I was still going through my college program of dance. I was studying ballet and modern dance. And there's a publication out there called The Backstage, and they have a list of auditions for everything, really. They have everything from TV and movies to stage and dance, and it happened to be the day that I was looking up, they had it for voiceover as well. And being a gamer myself, and being coming from an acting background, I've been doing stage since I was a kid. I've been in the acting, performing, and then dancing world for the last few years, at least at that point. Since I was, I don't know, like maybe 7 years old, I suppose, I've been doing stage. Mm-hmm. So I figured I could do multiple voices, I could do character voices, I could do all these different things that I'm just a kid, kind of practicing, or just kind of goofing around with my friends, or even playing Final Fantasy and whatever, trying to come up with whatever sounds we thought the characters would make. So I figured, wow, this is something that I really want to do. I would love to be a part of games, and so I went for it. Really, it was kind of like just brazen and kind of silly. I've never done it before, and what am I even doing? I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so I went into the audition, and they spoke to me. They talked to me for a little bit. And then they just said, well, can you read for the main character? Because we kind of just like the sound of your voice. And I was like, okay, you want me to do anything? Do you want me to change my voice or anything? And they said, no, just read it as you. And I thought, wow, that's really easy. Great. So yeah, I just read the lines for Hazuki, and I read them basically in my speaking voice. And they said, wow, okay, great, we like it. We'll give you a call. Okay, great. So, you go home, and this is a process where they give you a call, or they don't give you a call. Sometimes it's when they called me back, I guess it was 2 days later for the callback coming in again. Mm-hmm. And the second time they had me come in, they had a couple of members. They had brought in some more staff members from the game. I think perhaps people that had to do with the development of the English process. Maybe I don't know if it was producers or if it were people who were in the development of the game. However, they said, everything you did yesterday was great. We liked it, but the character is a little young. He's 18, so if you could just change the pitch of your voice just up one notch, if you could just change it, make it a little bit higher, let's go with that. And I said, okay, fine. So I just talked just ever so slightly higher, and they said, okay, great. And so they ended up calling me up, I think, later on that week, and said, yeah, we'd love to have you go to Japan and record with us. And it's like, wow, great. That was just taking a shot in the dark, and it was really, I describe it as really great luck, that I just happened to be there at the right time, and they just happened to like my speaking voice, almost completely just as me. And so it was really, just really, really good luck, and and so that's it, really.
That's amazing, because I was actually I was going to say a little bit earlier, your speaking voice sounds very, very similar, almost identical to your work in the Shenmue series. So I was going to kind of ask that, how similar, how much do they want you to change? So that's very interesting. At what point did you really know about the game itself? I mean, going into it, I assume that you really didn't know a lot about the game, but, did they, at the point of when, you actually signed on, then they gave you like a full script, or how did that work?
Yeah, the script, believe it or not, I do repeat a lot of the things that I say in the game to different people and stuff like that, but they gave me a script. I swear it was an inch or two thick every day. Every single day I went in, they gave me a big old thick script like that. And just because they gave is so comprehensive, so deep of the detail that they went in. They would give me personality charts for each character. They would even list their blood type.
Wow.
Of each character that I would interact with, because I don't know if you know, but in Asian culture and in Japan, it's kind of like instead of asking, are you a Pisces or an Aquarius, sometimes they'll ask you what your blood type is, and that dictates parts of your personality.
Okay.
And so yeah, they would give me like a short, background of this person, whether it was Landy or whether it was Terry or whether it was, all these different characters, whether it was Rin or, and then yeah, they just, each one I just kind of had to read over this character and be like, oh, okay, so it's this type of person. And then, so, yeah, I didn't know about the game itself because it was in Japanese at the time, and they didn't even tell me what game it was really until I got there, and I think that was probably part of the secrecy of the project, because you know how everything is super secret until things are going out, and yeah, they ended up handing me a Dreamcast and a version of the game that was still in Japanese, of course, and with English subtitles. And they had me play that. They gave me the first time I was there, I was in Shinagawa, and the second time I was there, I was in Anamori Inari, and that was very close to Sega headquarters, close to the Haneda airport there, and they gave me a business apartment. But each time they gave me a console, and they gave me the game, and they said, go ahead and play. And also, when I was at Sega headquarters, they had a console there for me as well, and I would play there. For example, if other actors came in and they had to work with them for an hour or whatever the case may be, I would go over there and play Shenmue in Japanese with English subtitles.
That is awesome.
So yeah, I was kind of getting a definitely in-depth study in the game and characters, and of course this thick script that they gave me all the time, and they just said, just read over everything so you know everything that's going on in the game, and play the game, and just I just kind of immersed myself in every aspect of the game, because really they took so much time and effort to design this world, and maybe people don't even know how much effort even goes into just the thought of the character alone, so.
Right. So did they have you read the script and play the game before you actually did any of your own voice work in the game? Did they want you to go through it and play as much as you could before? Or did you kind of do that, on the side when you weren't actually into the studio?
Yeah, I suppose it was on the side. When they got me there, they gave me a couple days to adjust, obviously, which is really great because, jet lag is not fun to deal with, I'm sure, as you know.
Yes, definitely.
And so when they gave me just those few days, I was able to play the game just on my own time, and I was always able, of course, to stay ahead of where I was. We did jump around, from time to time, so there were scenes that I didn't know what was going on. But for the most part, I was always ahead of where I was, and so yeah, I was able to kind of, because they just gave me a couple of days, or if I had time off, some days I didn't even come in. And they gave me vacation time as well, which was also really great. I got to see a lot of Japan. But yeah, I was always ahead, and I was able to immerse myself, not only playing the game but just through script and stuff like that as well. So basically, those things that they gave me, I was able to just kind of stay ahead of the game that way.
Awesome. What did you going into the game as you were playing it, at what point were you like, wow, or even did you, what were your thoughts on the game of, Shenmue, and was there any moment playing it when you're like, wow, I am actually a part of something that's going to be pretty amazing, or, did you ever, have any sort of, kind of realization like that?
Yeah, I did. That's one reason why I'm so honored to be a part of the game, because when I was playing it, I really did like the game a lot, and again, talking about the universe itself, and the characters, and just the whole you could waste your life playing Lucky Hit if you wanted to, or you could, and you can really just explore, and I really like the idea. Because even when you're playing role-playing games, you kind of have a bit of a linear path, But in this case, if you literally talk to somebody on one day, and if you went down a different street and talked to somebody else on the same day, you would get a different outcome. You know what I mean? As far as the paths kind of Y as opposed to going in a sort of a linear line. They kind of bow out and then go back together again, and then you can find secrets in a different way. In fact, I've said this before. It's funny that I voiced the game, but I still haven't found all the secrets in the game. Because there are some parts where you have to fight certain people, and you get to a certain area, and it's some things I haven't even found yet personally, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't even.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Know how people find all these things, but. Yeah, I found myself, and another thing too, I've talked about this too, where there were parts in the game that when you're walking, for example, like in the first one, where you're walking around Japan, and I know that there's a big time difference between where I was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and 1980s when the game took place, but the feel of Japan, the way that the buildings are structured. For example, there was a market right outside of Sega, and you kind of walk through it, and you're like, wow, I feel like I've been here before. Oh, because I've played it in the game, And awesome. to get that kind of feeling from a virtual world, that they got it so. That they've got that feeling of Japan so well in the game that I almost had a deja vu sometimes of where I was walking around, because of the way that just how culture structures itself, as far as people, as far as what people say and do, and the way that they structure their buildings. And yeah, it's like there's a is almost an open air kind of market where they had a bit of awnings, and I almost feel like I think somebody designed this particular market off of the one that was, just a block away from from Sega, because maybe, I don't know, they got their fruit there after they came home from work or something. Because yeah, it just, and I just remember, I remember that and thinking, if you've played Shenmue, you've kind of taken a trip in a light way. You've kind of taken a trip to Japan, because the way that they have it in the game, again, is how it is. That's what people say. That's what people do. That's how buildings are structured. That's how streets are structured. And it just feels like you're there, And I remember going to different parts of Japan, even just, or I should say Tokyo, even just walking around and being like, wow, this overpass is exactly like the overpass in the game. And so yeah, it really was quite interesting to be a part of a world that was so real, because I kind of feel like at that point I was playing a lot for, again, Final Fantasy or something like that, really, really great fantasy games with completely made up worlds, and that's awesome. But this was so eerily familiar.
Right.
You know what I mean? For where I was in Japan. So yeah, really, really quite interesting. And again, really loving the game and really loving the depth of it, and was really quite honored to be a part of that. So again, just being really, really lucky individual to be a part of something that I really enjoyed and really liked.
It's amazing.
So now that we, kind of know how Sega tried to get you ready for the job at hand, how did you prepare yourself to become Ryo?
Yeah, well, I look at the character, and I looked at his life and his discipline and his martial art, and I had been in martial arts since I was very young as well, and I had been involved in a different martial art. It was the only martial art in town, which was Taekwondo. Again, coming from a small town, this one was in San Marcos, Texas, and But Taekwondo is also a very disciplined martial, at least the one that I was in. They're very much into discipline, respect, and not just messing around. You're there to learn a serious art, and it really taught me a lot about respect and discipline when I was young. And actually, anybody who's listening, if they do have kids, I recommend that as well. Get your kid into a martial art that does, take itself seriously, because I learned so much about life in general from that. But drawing from my martial arts background and the discipline and at that time I was watching a lot of Japanese animation, a lot of Japanese films, a lot of Japanese samurai films. It just happened to be what I was into at the time. And that's part of what really attracted me to the project. I mean, I say that I always wanted to be in games, and but really when they said, 3 to 4 months in Japan, boom, my that's what really made me want to go for it, because many of us are, of course, fascinated by Japanese culture and people, and so that's something that I kind of had a lot of media experience with, I suppose, and I wanted a kind of a real world experience, and that's what really attracted me to the game. Like I said, so I kind of, the things that I saw in the media, I also sort of incorporated that as well. So yeah, when I was thinking about Hazuki, I thought about his father the things that obviously the part of the games that I had played and the script that I had read, I thought, yes, he's a very loving man, a strong family man, but he also instilled a lot of respect into his child. And so, yeah, I just thought about that, his family background, Ryo's family background, what he had experienced in life, and I just kind of thought those particular things. I mean, if you listen to the way that I voice it as well, I kind of have almost a Japanese kind of almost melodic, kind of a rhythmic, I should say, way of speaking. It's not very conversational like I'm speaking to you now.
Right.
It's he chooses his words very carefully. He kind of speaks not really slowly, but just softly, precise. And so I kind of thought about that as a young Japanese young man. So yeah, I kind of had a different way of speaking, a different sort of life philosophy than perhaps a lot of kids from the States might have. So yeah, I mean, I did kind of, and when I first read it that way for the audition, that's kind of like how I went with, and it ended up being the right choice because when I got there and I was able to play the game and I was able to play. I was able to read the script and I was able to play the game. I thought, yeah, this is really kind of where he's coming from and where the kind of, again, just really driving force as far as obviously he needs his revenge for his father, so he has a very strong driving force, but he's also, I always thought that he was kind, and I always thought that he was very precise in his thoughts and actions, and yeah, just getting those ideas of that character and thinking about Hazuki in that way really kind of made me speak it in that way. So, and that's what they liked. I guess they may have recognized that as maybe a way that a young Japanese man might speak. And so, yeah, that's what I went with, and that's what they liked. So, yeah, just really kind of building these ideas in my brain and just kind of keeping that at the forefront of my thought is really how I prepare for Hazuki, and that's just how it comes out of my mouth if I'm just kind of constantly thinking, putting myself in that life. I grew up with a dojo attached to my house, you know what I mean? So... This is my life, and my father was this man. This is what this is what he's dedicated his life to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you just put that in the front of your brain the whole time, and that's basically how I prepared for that. And luckily, my life experiences, perhaps that's why I was chosen for the project. My life experiences with my love of media coming from Japan. And also my martial arts background. It was all just kind of a perfect storm, I suppose, of being Hazuki.
I'd like to think you were probably a little bit better about picking up on the subtle clues of women who were interested in you than Ryo was, because Nozomi was really throwing herself out there a little bit throughout that game, and he completely missed the boat on a few of those opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting. If watching Japanese television while I was there, I noticed that this happens a lot in Japanese stories, and it happens, of course, to young people that are at school, and it'll take them years to ever admit that they ever have any feelings for each other whatsoever, and I've noticed this a lot actually with at least when I was there, watching these Japanese television shows, and I thought the same thing. I'm like, dude, it's obvious. Just reach on over and give her a nice smooch. I'm sure she'll really appreciate it. But yeah, it's kind of a culture thing, I think, where neither person really wants to really engage I think, and really take that relationship further. It's quite obvious that they have feelings for each other, and it's kind of like it builds this incredible emotion between these two characters. And for us, we're watching it being like, "Come on, are you kidding me?" But I think it's really about the characters themselves in the story. That if you can imagine this, if you can go back to when you were a kid and your hormones were just out of freaking control, and you can imagine how much your chest hurt when you really, really liked that girl.
Right.
And if you can imagine that with being right next to that same person, and you know that person probably has the same feelings, but neither one of you goes for it. I mean, how painful is that, right? And I think that might be part of the culture, because I've noticed that even with the TV shows that I was watching, and sometimes, you know, they'll stand up on top of the school building and announce how much they love this person, and sometimes they don't, you know. So it's definitely something different and interesting. And when I was playing the game, yeah, I thought, wow, this might be one of those instances where neither one of the characters wants to be the one to initiate, and it's definitely something, I don't know, that we're not used to, and
that's
sometimes quite frustrating, right? So.
Definitely.
Yes. Kind of going back to like the actual recording and everything, can you give us a little bit, tell us what it's like, or what it was like at the time?
As far as going and recording inside of the studio?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I love about working in Japan is how professional everything is. You know, I've worked in a lot of I've worked here in the States doing film projects, and I've done stage productions, and I've done other voiceover and stuff like that. But really, everything is already taken care of. That's one thing that I really loved about working in Japan. When I got there, they had everything for me. They had all my paperwork ready. They took care of everything as far as my visa was concerned. They gave me a business apartment. They gave me everything that I possibly could need: my bed, my television, my pots and pans, there's just nothing that they missed. And it's really the same thing when I went in with recording as well. Everything was all ready to go. Everything was by the book. There was no problems or issues or we messed up here, we need to go back and do this. You know, the only time I had to go back and re-record is when, you know, my lips made a funny popping noise or something like that, and, you know, they probably had some person working till 11 o'clock at night, listening to every minute detail to make sure that, you know, I didn't have some sort of popping noise or something like that. And that's the only time that I ever had to go back and record. So yeah, just the sort of order and professionalism that was in the studio was really quite something I've never experienced and never experienced since, which was great. And they really just have everything together. Anything that I would possibly need and want. Even just to get to rent movies over at the local movie store. They filled all that paperwork out for me just because it was in Japanese, and they have somebody there to take care of all these things for me at all times. You know, people who are fluent in English who can, you know, take care of me. But yeah, just working in the studio, it was just so smooth. You know, I don't know how else other to describe it. And you know, we had to even working with other voice actors that had their own schedules and their own careers. You know, we were able to sort of work everything around that as far as my schedule, and because I was there, I guess 5 days a week, almost all day. But yeah, sometimes voice actors could only come in at certain times, and that would be the time I'd go back and play. I'd go back and play the game with the English subtitles. But yeah, I think what strikes me the most when you say how was it recording, that's what I think of. It's just, wow, everything was so together, and I've never experienced that. But the voice actors themselves were really, really, really great people, and I really like working with voice actors. I think working with actors in LA can be quite a headache and a hassle, and you have to deal with ego, and you have to deal with, I don't know, them showing up fashionably late, and them not knowing their lines, and just a lot of stuff that I really don't like to work with in LA. But actors, I don't know, maybe because you don't see their face, I'm not sure. Maybe because they're not they're not out there in the limelight sort of thing. I'm not sure. Maybe I've just run into really great people, and I've said this before too. I don't know. Maybe I've just been incredibly lucky in the voiceover world, but I've liked everybody that I've worked with in the voiceover world, as far as directors and producers and everybody on the other side, operators, et cetera, but also voice actors. Eric Kelso, who voices Ren in the second game, and also other various characters, really became a really good friend of mine, and we hung out just off of outside of work, and really became good friends. And everybody else that I've worked with has just been really super cool people. And again, I don't know what it is about voice actors. Again, I don't know if it's because they're not seen, but they're just there to do good work and to do the best they can and go home and have a private life. And I'm not sure. It just feels like I've really always liked voice actors. Whether it was the animation that I did in New York, or if it was the video games that I did here, but even just going into studios and stuff like that, yeah, seems to be good people, and that's also what attracts me to the voiceover business. And that's why I'm going to get back in it. So.
When you guys were recording Shenmue, were you guys ever recording your lines at the same time, playing off each other, or was it all separate?
Yeah, both. There were times that they had people go in separately, but really when you had a big scene, when there was like a big cinematic sequence or something like that, and there were multiple characters involved, they brought us in. And that's great, because what we do, of course, as actors, is that we play off of each other. And when you have characters that are on the street, and I say, "Did you see a black car?" or whatever, it's not necessary for me to be there with that street vendor who's selling fruit, because that person can just respond like, "Oh no, I didn't see that," or "I did," or etc. So, but when we had a big cinematic sequence, when there was multiple characters involved in that, it was, of course, the best decision to bring in the actors, and we can all play against each other, because we all have that energy going, and we can hear how he's speaking, his intonations, his sort of timing, and what his mood is versus what our mood should be, what my mood should be, I should say, playing off of that. And it's really smart the way they did that. And of course, anybody who knows anything, I think, about probably game directing or directing animation would do the exact same thing, where it's not necessary to bring them in on now, because this is inconsequential. Or when it's a big scene like that, yeah, bring in the actors, because they really feed off of each other's energy, of course, in the best possible way.
Cool. So throughout all of your recording and pretty much the entire production altogether, how much interaction with Yu Suzuki himself did you have?
During the recording, actually none, because we had our team that worked all day, every day on it. As far as recording, I did meet Mr. Suzuki, and again, he's also a really nice guy as well. And I think he, of course, had to do with the development of the game. He gave the okay as far as all of the actors and stuff like that. He's really the main man that everything really processes through, right? But as far as the day-to-day, all day, every day work, I did not interact with him. It's kind of like he was the funnel, if you can say. Everything that needs to happen with the game goes through him, but we need this large basin up top to sort of do all the work. So yeah, as far as the day-to-day work, did not work with him directly, but he's the main man where everything gets the okay, and he sort of decides. For example, I guess I'm lucky enough that he decided that I should be Hazuki for the English version, and I was quite honored by that. And so yeah, I did get to meet and to be with him for a short time, but that's about it.
Okay, very cool. So once you were finished with Shenmue and the game was actually released, I'm sure by then you saw how the game industry was excited for this game. Everyone was talking about it back then. I still have my official Dreamcast magazine, and I often go back and read some of the previews for Shenmue. Just to, it was such a great nostalgic feeling around that time, because I remember how excited I was for it. When you actually first got to play the final version of the game and to hear your voice in the game, was it a surreal moment for you, and can you kind of take us back to that experience for you, and kind of what you felt and what you went through doing that?
Yeah, I guess it was less surreal than you think. Some people ask that question: is it just totally bizarre to hear your own voice coming out of this game that you're playing? And yeah, I suppose at first it was like, oh wow, you get that smile on your face, and you're like, oh, that's great, that's me, I did that. That's this again, a game that I like and I enjoy playing a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
I really, really do like this game. To actually hear my voice coming out of it is great. You kind of have that feeling of wow, that it's kind of like satisfying in a way, but surreal. Not as much, because, and I'll tell you why, because when we would often go back and watch our own cinematic sequences, and they would even give me, I mentioned this before, and some other questions that people have asked me, but when we voiced the game, of course, the lips were still in the Japanese version, and what they would do is they would go back and they would change the lip sync to the English version, so they would match my speech to that. So they were able to switch it so it didn't look out of sync. And so they would play back these sequences for me, so I did get a chance to see myself, my voice, with the character and the animation, and through a lot of the cinematic sequences. And a lot of that was for reference. If we're picking something back up again, you get to see where the emotion, where your emotional level was at that point, whether you were, at a particular level of anger, or if you were, so I did get to see myself go through a lot of the cinematic sequences. So I was kind of used to seeing my voice with the character. But yeah, I think really playing the game, it was more of a satisfaction, like wow, I think I did something good here,
Awesome.
and able to see that, and that was that moment of yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
Awesome. So, well, on Facebook, we know that you're really interactive when it comes to talking to the fans and everything like that. So aside from everybody begging and pleading and wanting to know when Shenmue 3 is coming, what is the most consistent thing that you hear from the fans outside of all that Shenmue crying?
Consistent thing. I suppose you do get more common questions than others. I think doing these podcasts is a good idea, because then people will be able to go back and listen to it and kind of hear some of these questions that people have been asking. Therefore, a large group of people will be able to hear what we're talking about. And so, yeah, some questions do get asked because obviously they're not connected to other people like I am. They're not seeing what other people are asking all the time. You know what I mean? So, yeah, other than asking about Shenmue 3, I don't know. It does. I don't know. People ask me like my favorite aspects of the game. What parts did I like about the game? How was it like? People sometimes ask me about the other voice actors. For example, Eric Kelso, or yeah, I don't know. People kind of ask me a whole gambit of questions as well. I do kind of get some odd questions.
What's the oddest question?
Yeah, I'm trying to actually think. I'm actually trying to think of that right now. The moment I said that, I was like, "Oh, what's the oddest question I've ever got?" Sometimes people ask me, and they kind of put me on the spot, and they ask me like, "Oh, well, how do you feel?" Oh, for example, like we were just talking about Nozomi, right? People would ask me about like, "Oh, well, what would you do?" With the Nozomi situation, and I'm like, "What? I don't know. Like, I don't know." And it kind of put me on the spot sometimes, and it makes me like I don't know how quite to answer. And it's like, well, do I think Nozomi is beautiful and very nice girl, and maybe would I see? Maybe I shouldn't say anything because I'm coming from a different background, and yeah, then I don't want to incriminate myself. It's like, oh well, then maybe if I did something different, maybe I'm not as great as Hazuki, because he was quite stoic in his reactions with Nozomi. So yeah, sometimes it's like, oh man, I don't know how quite to react with that, because yeah, I would definitely act differently with somebody like Nozomi, because she's a great girl, I think, in my opinion. So
most definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. Just sometimes I think when people put me on the spot like that, I don't know how quite to react. And I think when they ask me personally some questions about me and my life, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a little weird. Yeah, I don't know. Stuff like that.
I think some fans have some trouble separating the video game to the reality from the actor to the actual character in the game, and they sometimes blur the lines a little bit.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, you have a game like that was one of the very few games that ever actually really made you feel, for your various characters and the surroundings you're in. So I can kind of see why some people really got into it to the point of asking questions like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. When we're talking about not just an epic storyline, which is great, but really personal connections that these characters have to each other, whether they're unlikely best friends or whether they're in the case of Hazuki and Nozomi, this sort of high school angsty love, sort of painful, she's going away and that's why I shouldn't do anything and I really want to. And yeah, like you said, that really does stir up emotions, because those are things that we can relate to, I think, a lot in our own personal lives. I think that's, again, if a good book does that or if a good game does that, yeah, you want those kind of realistic personal connections that the characters have with each other. So yeah, you're right. Maybe that's why people did blur those lines. But even as an actor, you kind of want to blur those lines anyway. You know what I mean? You want to grab, if you're playing a bad guy, you want to grab the the darkest part of yourself, the person that just, you know, I think we all have these thoughts when somebody, you know, it's like some road rage incident happens and you just want to smash that person's face in, and you think, dude, that is not me. You know, why did I even have that thought? But when you are a character who wants to smash people's faces in, maybe you can go back to that part and you can feel that part of yourself. And I think maybe people who are good, you know, good bad guys maybe do have a dark side of themselves that, you know, they would never even admit that ever happens. Or because, you know, even some of the voice actors, the people who play the crazier characters, you can just tell that they're just a little crazy inside, you know, and they're able to play these characters so well because they just have this other side of themselves that is just, they're fun, cool, outgoing people, and you like them, and they'll you know, they'll never, you know, do something weird and bizarre to you, but they're able to play these characters because they do kind of have another side to themselves. They are just a little crazy, and that's good. I think, you know, actors who do movies are like that, and actors who do voices are like that. So I think, yeah, me being Hazuki, I was able to draw a lot from my experiences. So there is that line that we blur there too. Speaking of blurring lines between my personal self and my character self, I think you kind of have to do that. You have to grab from some aspects, and some people are able to just magically generate themselves from nothing, which is great. But I think that probably people who are able to really throw themselves into a character, and people really can see that is good work, I think, are probably drawing something from themselves. And let's just say, you know, it's somebody who's doing a movie, like let's just say Anne Hathaway just did in Les Mis, right? So you can go in there and you can read that book, and if you've ever read Les Mis, it's just the most chest-bursting, heart-ripping experience that you could possibly. So if you want to be depressed and near suicide ever in your life, you can read this book. And I think that even if you just immerse yourself in something like that, you're able to draw upon those experiences, and because a book does become an experience that you go through. I mean, really, if you drop yourself into a story, you're able to go through that. And that might be part of what you were saying as well, where people are possibly unable to differentiate, you know, have a difference between me personally and my character, because maybe people did drop themselves into into that story so much. So yeah, that does make sense.
I saw, I think it was a few days ago, maybe it was a little bit, but you posted a reaction video to the Ryu Soundboard prank call very recently, and that was really funny.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of other different, you know, funny videos like that. I don't know if you watched the Mega 64 video where one of the characters was out dressed as Ryu, and he was out asking random people if they know where he can find the 4 Voodoo, or where he can find some sailors or something.
You know what? I love that video. That is
it's
hilarious,
great.
and I've seen it, and I just. Anybody who's able to do that, I really just give serious props to, because if you're able to go out there into the world and put yourself out there and do that, holy God.
Right. Yeah.
Man, I can't believe that he did that. And he was able to do it with a straight face and not worry about personal harm to himself. And, well, maybe he was. Of course he was. I'm sure he was. But,
yeah.
I don't know how he did it. Man, hats off. And it was all just for our entertainment, because anybody who's ever played the game is laughing so hard right now at that particular moment, and he did it for us.
Exactly.
And he really put himself out there for it. So yeah, bravo, man.
I absolutely love those guys.
Yeah, it's scary. So
I'm
glad he's doing it.
Well, it's definitely not. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not having to do that. But I mean, those guys are great. But you know, going, you know, with that, I mean, Shenmue has become so ingrained in the video game culture, and, you know, what does it feel like to kind of look back, you know, having done so much, you know, work within that franchise and stuff, and see stuff like that, or see those Soundboard prank calls that are just so funny, but it's because this franchise is so endearing to so many people that it's kind of lived on, even though there hasn't been another game in the series for so long. It's still living on just by people, kind of doing those type of things. What does that kind of make you feel like going back and seeing those type of things?
I'm always kind of constantly amazed when I see something like that, and of course it's kind of like you just when I personally do something, right, I especially on a project like this, I just want to do something that people like. You know what I mean? I'm doing it for a living. I want to make money. I want to make money for my family and my daughter, and I'm trying to do it for a living. But really, I'm just trying to make stuff that people like. I just want to do cool things that people want to play, that people want to do, and that's really sort of my main goal in life. Really, it's just to do things. It's not like I'm doing it for my ego, or I'm not doing it for fame or power, or what. I don't need to be super rich. I just like it when I can do something and people enjoy it. So when I see those things, when people still keep doing these things, it makes me like, it's just happy and a moment of pride, and think like, wow, these people really liked the project. And I'm so honored to be a part of that. And when people keep doing it, it's just like, man, that's so great. That I really just try to do something good. I really try to do something that people like. And for people to carry on until today, people can still carry on today about the product. It just means that people experienced everything that I wanted.
That's awesome.
And that's it's an honor, and I love it, and I'm just so happy that people like the project.
Most definitely. This next question comes from Graham. He's our European editor on the site. He couldn't make it because I think it's about 3:30 in the morning in England right now. But he did want us to ask this question, and I think it's a pretty good and funny one. So probably the most infamous line in Shenmue is the part where Ryu's asking about where he could find some sailors. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that. So he wants to know, when you were reading that line originally, did it kind of come across as a little humorous to you at the time, or was it something that later on in the context of the game, it kind of transformed into this kind of, funny little thing that, had some, undertones in American culture that it may not have had in Japanese culture?
Yeah, yes, I did speak up, and I did say, you know what, this does sound a little strange, and I had to explain, a bit of our culture and a bit about, sailors and that sort of thing. And when I explained it, they said, we understand, but this is how Hazuki would say it, and we're trying to get a flavor that is still Japanese and still not just American, but they're saying it was European and it was Canadian and it was, the English version is gonna kind of travel. So they said, we kind of we understand what you're saying, but we kind of want to way, because it still is, the way Hazuki would say it, it's still kind of off the Japanese version. And I said, I was like, okay, I'm just letting you know. It sounds, and I think that's part of the charm of the game.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, I would not, now that it's like that, I would not change a thing about that part.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I first, it wasn't just that day. It wasn't just the Sailors' Day. It was multiple days in a row, or not in a row, but just multiple times where I was like, we really wouldn't say it that way. It does sound kind of strange. It does sound like he's looking for some kind of some action, if you know what I'm saying, you know. So, hi baby. Sorry, that's my daughter.
Oh, that's okay.
So yeah, you know, I did speak up multiple times, but yeah, you're right. I'm kind of glad that nothing changed because it's definitely a part of the charm of the game. It's part of the quirk of the game, you know. So yeah, the game is real serious sometimes, and sometimes it just makes people bust out laughing. But it's part of the character. It's part of the game. It's part of what Shenmue is, and should it be changed? Probably not.
No
right?
way. No way. No.
Nope.
So yeah, the long and the short of it is, yeah, I did have some debates, and we had to stop recording, and I had to talk about it. But yeah, that's the way it is, and that's the way it always will be. So
awesome. I think the latest game that actually featured Ryu in it was Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing.
Right.
There were some lines in that. Did you actually go back in the studio to record new lines, or do they use old bits from previous recordings?
Yeah, no, I did not go back in because my contract is a buyout contract, right? So that means that when I record it, they have my sound files and it's theirs. They own it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was just really easy for Sega to take those sound bits that they already had and to incorporate that into the new game. Mm-hmm. So really, it was just pretty easy for Sega to keep Hazuki going through Sega and putting him into a new game and have him do a little homage there. So it was cool. I liked seeing that and hearing those sounds again. You know, the martial arts sounds and the grunts and the, you know, I was like, oh yeah, it was kind of cool to see that again. But yeah, it was one of those things that Sega already owns.
Okay.
And they would put that into the game. So.
Absolutely. Okay. Understood.
One question, since you know we all love Yakuza, or not Yakuza, Shenmue for everything it was. Have you had a chance to play the wildly popular, kind of at least in the East game, Yakuza at all?
So yeah, I haven't been able to play Yakuza, and I've heard that it's a really great game, and I would love to play it, and I'd love to get back into playing console games. But yeah, just I've really taken a break from everything in life recently with my daughter. Just spending, taking time off of work and just being a full-time dad. You know what I mean? So I haven't been able to play games like I've been wanting to, and I know this series has been out for years, but yeah, I haven't been able to play it. In fact, even somebody suggested making a game. If we could get Shenmue 3, and we could combine the two games and have both characters come in and fight side by side. And I thought, wow, that'd be pretty interesting because I know it's a really wildly popular game, and people were like, well, maybe we could get Shenmue 3 that way. It's like, okay, well, put it out there on the web and we'll see what happens.
It's definitely an awesome game, and like the reason I bring it up is it's very open world, almost in the exact same way that Shenmue was. The fact you can go and waste your time gambling if you feel like it, or you can go buy stuff in the store that's all, various foods, or you could go waste your time in the arcade, like I spent hours upon hours playing Hang On in Shenmue forever. But and it was kind of like that, and it almost kind of had the same tone to it, and that's the only reason I brought it up.
Yeah, and I think that's why somebody even said we could make a segue from one game to another, because it did remind them so much of Shenmue, and I'm sure there's a lot of inspiration, from game to game, as games always are inspired by other games. But yeah, I think it does remind people a lot of Shenmue, and yeah, that's also interesting. I mean, I was talking about mobile gaming, myself, and I'm just now playing the Walking Dead game on my iPad, and quick time event come up where I have to wipe or I have to hit a particular place on the pad to get away from a zombie or whatever. I'm like, wow, here I am, how many years later playing Shenmue again, where I have
QTE.
to. Yeah, exactly. A little quick time event. I'm like, God, I got to get away from the zombie. And I'm like, oh wow, man, I'm playing Shenmue again. And that was the first time that I ever did any quick time event. Of course, was on Shenmue, and here it is again. People are using that type of kind of feeding off of and building from other games, which is great because all the games that come before are the pillar, the base, and we can build something great and fantastic off of that. And it's great when I see inspiration from Shenmue on other games. So.
Yeah, well, I thought it was even cooler the fact that it was Sega putting it out. I was like, what are you trying to tell me? But yeah, crossover would be great.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned the crossover, so we'll see. Maybe if enough people are crazy enough about it, it'll happen. So
wishful thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking.
Here's another quick question from our European guy, and he's a little stalkerish, but so you'll kind of get a sense of that. He was saying that here, I guess last week, you posted a picture on your Facebook where you were standing in front of a Sega, looks like a poster, but it looks like it could be Ryu Hazuki's motorcycle on it. It's kind of blurred out by you, but he wanted to know. If that has any importance, and I guess he was saying there was also another picture of you looking like you're back in studio doing some voice acting again. So obviously that got the SegaNerds out in the wild, spun into a tizzy.
Yeah, that picture that I took with the Sega logo, man, I even forgot what game that was. I love, Sega actually puts out some great arcade games, and I love to play Sega arcade games all the time. And I was in Vegas when I took that picture, and man, what game was that? It was, I think it was a motorcycle racing game. But I'm not remembering exactly at this time which one it was. And I just, and I was telling my wife, I was like, oh, Sega arcade game. They put out great arcade games, and I played a couple games there, and she just had me pose right there with Sega. And the picture of me back in studio is a recent picture. In fact, very recent. But with non-disclosure agreements, I cannot reveal any project that I'm working on. I can say, however, I am not working on Shenmue 3. So if anybody is freaking out about that, I've definitely tried to quench that fire, but it seems to still keep going on. So I'm saying right here, right now, it's not 3, not yet. So, please don't freak out too much.
Right. You have to understand, you pose in front of anything Sega related, it has the chance of breaking the internet. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. The other day, because, again, with me getting back into the business, my Facebook did blow up the other day where, a bunch of people, with friend requests and stuff like that. And I posted the pictures, and I was like, oh, wow, it definitely does get people excited, which is great. But, basically what I'm letting people know is that now that my daughter's getting older, she's going to go back to school, or she is going to go to school. I'm back. I'm going to be back in the business. I'm going to be, working again, so people can look out for all those things.
Awesome. So going and looking at your IMDb page, it looks like you've also done some acting work here not too long ago. You were saying that you wanted to get back into voice acting, though. Is that something that you want to stay into the voice acting, or are you thinking of or would you like to at some point go into actually I guess full character acting at some point down the line? Like, what are your really your goals as far as acting goes?
Well, I suppose if the opportunity came up for me to do, I guess you could say, live action, movies where it's just me, I guess I wouldn't turn it down. but it is not. I did that for a little while. I worked in front of the camera. I did music videos, My Chemical Romance, and old 97s, and I did producing, and I did some some kind of creature features and things like that. But I guess I kind of found out that I didn't enjoy the business as much. So really, what I would love to do, first of all, is I'm getting back into the business, so I'll continue to work with voiceovers. But really, what I would love to do is the combination of motion capture with video games and voice acting on top of that. So not just motion, but for example, how they do on something like Avatar, or they do something on Lord of the Rings, where they have the digital characters, where they actually have the actors acted out, they speak it, I don't know if they film their face or if they do whatever. We'll be doing that a lot more in video games in the future. Whether they'll have stunt people doing the action or they'll have actors actually acting it out, I would like to get back into that business. I'm currently getting back into shape myself. I'm going to start taking my martial arts again, and I would like to not only combine. Yeah, I would like to combine my voice acting on top of motion capture as well, and really that would be my ultimate goal within the industry. I think that is not only sounds fun, but I like to kind of be on the edge and just try to push technology as much as I can, and that's definitely something where I want to be.
Awesome. And we actually have a few fan questions that were submitted to us. Like I said at the beginning, we got a ton of stuff from Twitter, so I did want to, if you don't mind, just field a few questions from Twitter. And you kind of touched on this a little bit ago, but one person asked if Shenmue would be a game that you would encourage your children to play, and do you think it says, do you think Shenmue has principles to share that one can adapt to? I don't really know what that means, but I guess
yeah, I would have my child play Shenmue, when she's ready. There are life lessons in the story. Of course there is. You think, oh well, he's on a quest of revenge, and is revenge really the right thing in life? And maybe it's not. So there's this sort of underlying story, but he really goes through life and learns a lot of life lessons, whether it is about friendship or about his personal view on the world. He has to deal with things like, he has to really change how he views the world sometimes. He gets his eyes opened in a few instances, and he has to learn things about, his own patience and his own, he has to sort of step into his own mind and really kind of stop these outside influences on him. So yeah, there's actually a lot of life lessons to be learned within the game, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. Yeah, of course they can.
Awesome.
What was the most emotional moment while voice acting Ryozuki? How can you describe him as a character and who he is?
It might be very similar to people who are playing it in the game, where you have where there are the cinematic sequences at the beginning and the end, where sort of the same emotional responses that, if you can imagine anybody who's listening to this playing the game, those same emotional responses that you're having while playing the game, I personally had those while I was voicing it. You know what I mean? So if I'm voicing the very beginning where father dies, I kind of had those same sort of things were happening. Things are really incredible. Oh, I thought that my dad was powerful and skilled, and here comes this man who is obviously very different than us, dresses differently. And then he was able to dispatch my father with such ease. It just was kind of painful and kind of like, oh, you just feel like everything you thought was happening is kind of different. You know what I mean? So I kind of imagine that the people playing the game probably had the same emotions I did when I was voicing it, right? So, and then the second part of the question was,
how can you describe Ryo as a character?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to a little bit earlier when I was speaking of when you asked me about how I kind of got myself ready for Hazuki. So
Right.
yeah, describing him as a character, if like really, I guess you kind of have to. Yeah, I mean, again, when I was talking about him being stoic, him being
Okay.
hey baby, him being stoic, him being very strong-willed, him being very driven, determined. All those things are him as a character. If you can imagine this type of this young Japanese kind of driven individual, yeah, that's just him in a nutshell. Really, he is kind of like these old samurai films, if you can imagine that as a young man growing up. That's really who he is in a nutshell. So
Awesome. And last question from the fans. They want to know, I don't know if you're familiar with the Give You the Shenmue License campaign that was going on Twitter here recently, but they want to know what you think should be done in order for Sega to take action and release Shenmue 3. From a fan perspective, what do you think they should do?
Yeah, well, I kind of feel that if Sega doesn't want to do the project, I would like to see it released. I think a lot of people, a lot of fans would like to see it released, and Yu Suzuki is the creator, the mastermind behind it, and I really think that that would be the best possible place to release it. If you wanted to release the rights to it, I think giving it to Mrs. Suzuki is the right move. And I don't think that there would be any sort of animosity or bad blood or anything like that. I think that you're not giving it to somebody else, right? You're not, and they're not going to ruin it. They're not going to take the Sega image and do anything bad. You know what I mean? Because I think we all just want to make 3. We want to make it good. We want to make a good product. And I think that, just because of just we had some problems and some hiccups. If Sega is unwilling or unable to make it, then I think that they should release it, and if I don't know the whole story behind it, I don't know if there's some reason why they can't, if there is some legal reason why they can't, if they're contractually obligated to keep it within Sega. I'm not sure, so I can't say why they're keeping it or whether they're actually thinking about passing it on, releasing the rights. I don't know. I'm not sure. So unfortunately, there is a lot of legality issues to hash out when these things happen. So I can't speak 100% on that. But yeah, of course, as a fan and as somebody who would love to see the franchise continued, or even if we decide to finish it here, because I know there are a bunch of chapters, and I know that Sega wanted to do it in 3 chapters. If we could maybe even continue it, maybe we could not stop at 3. Maybe we can continue to go to 4 or 5. Who knows?
Yeah, we could keep going. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So as a fan, I would like to see it. I would like to see it released. If Sega is still thinking about doing it, that might be another thing too. Who knows? I don't know. So yeah, we'll kind of see what the future holds, and maybe we'll get some more information out. Maybe there will be some tidbit of information to be like, oh well, there was some sort of contract to say that only Yu Suzuki could do it in our facilities for whatever reason. They'd have to hash that out legally or something. Who knows? So
awesome. So best of luck to you, and hopefully at some point in the future we can have you on again, and we could talk more about the game, or hopefully at some point we can talk about Shenmue 3. That'd be great.
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, so again, just keep an eye out for me and some projects I got coming up, and yeah, if we can get back on and talk about Shenmue 3 or something like that, I would come back on anytime.
Awesome. Best of luck.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys.